Yet, the night went smoothly. On the second day, Xiang came to him with an overjoyed expression.
Xiang, you really struck it lucky. The old man went to our sect's discussion conference last night, so we don't have classes for a few days.
Now that the old one is gone, the young one can be easily taken care of. Shan quickly climbed up, beaming as he put on his boots.
A lucky strike indeed! Almost as if heaven is blessing me with its clouds.
Xiang stood on the side, carefully cleaning his sword, and threw cold water on this notion.
When he comes back, you're still gonna get your punishment.
Shan responded.
Why would a living person worry about what happens after they die? I'll just live freely as long as possible. Let's go. I refuse to believe that I can't find any peasants on this mountain of the land sect.
The three walked together, passing through the reception room of the cloud recesses. Suddenly, Shan stopped in his tracks and exclaimed,
There are 2 little furry lanterns.
A few people walked out of the room. Of the 2 youths at the front, both looked as if they were carved out of ice and jade. Both wore the same snow-white robes, and both had sword tassels which swayed in the breeze alongside ribbons on their clothes. The only differences were their ambiances and facial expressions. Shan could tell at once that if the one with the stern face was Lawanji, the gentle one must be the other jade of the land sect, Jun or Xiang. As Lawanji surveyed Shan, he scrunched his brows, giving him a glare in an almost glowering fashion, as if he would be tainted if he looked a moment longer. He moved his gaze away and stared into the distance. On the other hand, Xiang smiled.
And you are?
Xiang showed his respect with a salute.
Jianwanin of Yumeng.
Shan followed.
Shan of Yumeng.
Xiang returned the salute. Xiang whispered in the volume of a knot.
Brother Xiang.
Xiang turned to him.
Xiang, a while ago as I returned from Qinghe, your brother asked of your studies. How is it? This year, will you be able to pass?
Xiang replied.
Generally speaking, yes.
He seemed like a wilted cucumber looking at Shan in a helpless way. Shan grinned.
Jun, what are you 2 going out for?
Xiang.
To exterminate a water ghoul. We were short of hands, so I came back to find Wanji.
Wanji spoke coldly.
Brother, we do not need to engage in small talk. This matter permits no delay. It is time for us to depart.
Shan hurried.
Wait. I know how to catch water ghouls. Jun, why don't you take us along?
Xiang smiled without words.
Wanji declared, It is against the rules.
Shan.
How is it against the rules? We used to catch water ghouls all the time in Yumeng. Besides, we don't have classes these days anyways.
Yumeng was abundant in lakes and water, so it teemed with water ghouls. It was true that people of the Jiang sect were adept at this, and Xiang also wanted to make up for the face which the Yunmen Jiang sect lost during this stay at the land sect.
That's right, Jun. We'd definitely be of help. It is not necessary. The Gusulan sect is also...
Before Wanji finished talking, Xiang spoke while smiling.
Sure then. Many thanks for your help. Do some preparations and we can depart together. Huaisang, are you coming as well?
Ne Huaisang also wanted to join in, but he had been reminded of his older brother as he met Lan Shichen. Grinning silently, he didn't dare to have fun.
I'll pass and go back so that I can review.
With this act, he hoped that Lan Shichen would put in some good words for him to his brother. Wei Wuxian and Jianchen went back to their rooms to prepare. Lao Wanji looked at them from behind, his brows knitted with confusion.
Brother, why did you decide to bring them? Exterminating ghouls is not suited for joking around.
Lan Shichen answered.
The head disciple and only son of sect leader Xiang are quite well known in Yunmeng. It is likely that they know more than joking around.
Although Lao Wanji didn't express his opinion, the phrase, "I beg to differ," was written all over his face. Lan Shichen spoke again.
And also you wish for him to go to as well, do you not?
Lao Wanji was stunned. Lan Shichen,
I only agreed because you looked as if you wanted the head disciple of the sect leader Xiang to come with you.
A silence fell upon them, as if the air was frozen solid. Only after a while did Lao Wanji finally respond, speaking with great difficulty.
There are no such thing.
He wanted to defend himself further, but Wei Wuxian and Jiangchen already grabbed their swords and headed over. So Lao Wanji had to shut his mouth. The group mounted their swords and set off. The place where the water ghouls haunted was named Sayi Town, about 10 kilometers away from the cloud recesses. Sayi Town was connected with paths of water. It was either a net of rivers densely covering the town or dwellings packed on either sides of the web-like water paths. The houses had white walls and grey roofs, and the rivers were filled with boards of baskets and people. On the banks, they sold flowers, fruits, bamboo crafts, pastries, tea, and silk. Gusu was in the Jiannan area, and all the voices one could hear were soft and gentle. As the boats crashed into each other and a few jars of rice wine were spilled, even the arguments of the two boatmen sounded like chirps of the oriole. Although Yunmeng had many lakes, there weren't a lot of small towns with so much water. Wei Wuxian found it quite interesting. He bought 2 jars of rice wine and gave one to Jiangchen.
Gusu people talk in such a sugary way. How is this arguing? If they saw human people argue, they might be scared to death. Why are you looking at me, Lanchan? It's not that I'm too stingy to buy you any. Aren't people from your sect prohibited from drinking alcohol?
Having only stayed for a short time, the group boarded 10 or so narrow boats and rowed toward where the water ghouls gathered. Gradually, the number of houses on the banks decreased and the river path became quieter as well. Wei Wuxian and Jiangchen each had a boat, competing who could row faster while listening to events in the area that concerned water ghouls. This water path led to a large lake ahead of them, named Biling Lake. Sayi Town hadn't been haunted by water ghouls ever since 10 years ago. Yet, for the past few months, people had started to fall into this path and Biling Lake. Boats which carried goods also sunk without any reasons. A few days ago, Xiang casted a few nets over this area. He expected to catch 1 or 2 water gulls, but got about a dozen instead. He cleaned the corpses and carried them to a nearby part of the town, only to find that some corpses were not familiar to any of the local people and remained unclaimed. Yesterday, he set up the net formation again and caught quite a few again. Wei Wuxian spoke. It doesn't seem like that the corpses drowned somewhere else and floated here either. Water gulls are picky about their area. Most of the time, the only place they settle on is a place they drown at. And they usually don't live there. Then Xiang nodded. That is correct. This was why I thought it was no tribal matter and asked Wanji to come along, in case something happens. Wei Wuxian asked, Suvijun, water gulls are really clever. If we use the boats and take our time like this, isn't it possible that they'll hide underwater and not come out? Won't we have to keep on searching forever? What if we can't find them? Wanji replied, We will wait until we find them. After all, we do what we must. Wei Wuxian, just by using nets? Xiang, that's right. Does the Yumenjian sect have other methods? Wei Wuxian smiled but didn't respond. Of course, the Yumenjian sect used nets as well, but because he was a good swimmer, he had always jumped into the river and dragged the water gulls out. However, this method was too dangerous. He definitely couldn't do it in front of the land sect's people. If it traveled into Lanchiran's ears, he would definitely face another lecture. He switched the topic. It'd be great if there's something that can attract the water gulls, like a fishing bait, or something that can point out their directions, like a compass. Jianchen spoke. Look down at the water and concentrate on finding them. You're letting your imagination run again. Wei Wuxian. Cultivation and riding on swords also used to be just imagination. As he looked down, he happened to be able to see the bottom of the boat which Wanji was on. An idea flashed across his head, and he shouted, Lanchan, look at me! At the moment, Wanji was keeping a sharp lookout. As he heard the words, he looked up only to see Wei Wuxian's bamboo paddle sweep up a splash of water and strike it toward him. With the tap of his foot, Wanji lightly hopped onto another boat, dodging the spray. He was quite angered, thinking to himself that, sure enough, Wei Wuxian was here to fool around. Pathetic. However, Wei Wuxian kicked the side of the boat which he was standing on and tipped it over using the bamboo paddle. On the bottom of the boat, there were 3 water gulls with swelling faces and ashen skin tightly clinging onto the wooden boards. A disciple who stood nearby immediately suppressed the 3. Xiang smiled. Young Master Wei, how did you know that they were below the boats? Wei Wuxian knocked on the side of the boat. Simple! The displacement of water was wrong. He was the only person who stood on the boat, yet the displacement was greater than those of boats that carried 2 people. There must have been something on the bottom. Xiang praised him. You're experienced indeed. Wei Wuxian's paddle lightly glided through the water, and the boat's speed quickened. so that he was right next to Lawanji's boat. He spoke.
Lanchan, I didn't splash water on you purpose. Water gulls are very clever. If I said it out loud, they would have heard it and got away. Hey, don't ignore me. Why don't you look at me? Second young Maslan.
Lawanji finally condescended and gave him a glance.
Why did you come?
Vaibhushan spoke with sincerity.
I'm here to apologize to you. Last night was my fault. I was wrong.
Lawanji's countenance was slightly dark, most likely because he still didn't forget how Vaibhushan apologized to him. Vaibhushan asked, although he knew the answer.
Why do you look so gloomy? Don't worry. Today, I'm really here to help.
Jianchen couldn't watch the scene any longer.
If you want to help, then stop chattering and come here.
A disciple shouted.
The net moved.
Sure enough, the ropes of the net started to wobble. Vaibhushan beamed.
It's here, it's here.
Thick, long hair formed wells of black satin, surging and swelling around the boats. Amid them, a pair of ghastly hands gripped onto the sides. Lawanji backhandedly drew his sword, beaten, and severed 10 or so wrists on the left of the boat, leaving only palms with fingers digging deep into the wood. As he was about to cut the ones on the right, a red light flashed past, and Vaibhushan's sword was already back in its sheath. The strange shifts of the water had ceased, and the net also became still once more. Although a few moments ago Vaibhushan's sword attacked at an extremely fast speed, Lawanji could already tell that the sword he carried was of very high quality. He asked with a serious face,
What is the name of your sword?
Vaibhushan answered,
Suibian.
Lawanji stared at him. Vaibhushan that he didn't hear properly, so he repeated it again.
Suibian.
Lawanji frowned and refused.
This sword has a spirit. Calling it as one pleases is disrespectful.
Vaibhushan let out a sigh.
Think outside the box, won't you? I wasn't asking you to call it whatever you wanted to, but the name of my sword just happened to be Suibian. Here, look.
As he spoke, he passed the sword over to Lawanji to see the characters on the sword. Surrounded by lines and patterns, 2 ancient characters were carved onto the sheath. It was Suibian indeed. After a few moments, Lawanji was at a loss of words. Vaibhushan showed his consideration.
You don't need to talk. I know that you definitely want to ask me why it's called this name. Everyone asks if it has some special meaning to it. Actually, there's no special meaning at all. It was just that. When Uncle Xiang gave me the sword and asked me what I wanted to call it, I came up with more than 20 names, but wasn't satisfied with any of them. I thought that I could let Uncle Xiang give it a name. So I answered, whatever. But who knew that? After the sword has been forged and taken out, these 2 characters were on it. Uncle Xiang said, if this is the case, then why not let this sword be named Suibian? To be honest, this name isn't bad either, right?
Lawanji finally spoke through his gritted teeth.
Ridiculous.
Wei Wuxian carried his sword on his shoulder.
You are such a boring person. Don't you see how fun this name is? It's especially good at tricking serious ones like you. And it works every single time.
At the same time, from within the virid lake, a long shadow darted around the small boat. After Xiang finished the water goals on his side, he was still watching out for any that they had missed. Seeing the shadow, he immediately yelled,
"It's coming again!"
A few disciples paddled and used nets to chase after the underwater shadow. Someone shouted from the other side,
"There are some here as well!"
On the other side, a mass of black shadows also whooshed past. A number of narrow boats dragged nets and went over, but they didn't catch anything. Wei Wuxian spoke.
"That's strange. The shape of this shadow doesn't seem like a human. It's also sometimes long and sometimes short, sometimes large and sometimes small. Lanchan, beside your boat!"
Instantly, the beacon on Lao Wanji's back unsheathed and stepped into the water. After a moment, it flew out of the river with a sharp resonance, taking with it a crescent of water. Yet it didn't pierce anything. He held the sword in his hand with a stern expression. As he was about to speak, a disciple on the other side also drew out his sword, thrusting it toward a dark shadow which swiftly swam by in the water. However, after his sword went underwater, it never came out again. He chanted the sword incantation for a few more times, but nothing was retrieved from the water. It was as if his sword had been devoured by the lake, disappearing without a trace. The disciple looked like he was a youth of similar age as Wei Wuxian and the others. Without his sword, his face grew paler and paler. An older disciple beside him spoke. "Sosha, right now! We still haven't determined what the thing inside the water is. Why did you act on your own and make your sword go underwater?" Sosha seemed like he was somewhat flustered, but his expression was relatively calm. "I saw that second young master also." He realized before he even finished speaking how unsuitable this sentence was. No matter what, the beacon sword or Lao Wanji were not comparable with others. Lao Wanji could enter his sword into water when the opponent was unknown and be just fine, but it might not be the case for others. An embarrassed shade of red seeped through his pale complexion as if he had been disgraced. He glimpsed at Lao Wanji, but Lao Wanji didn't look at him, and instead attentively observed the water. In an instant, beacon was unsheathed again. This time, the blade of the sword wasn't inserted into water, but instead the tip of the sword jolted and whisked up a piece of shadow from within the water. A pile of wet, black mess fell onto the floor of the boat with a plop. Wei Wuxian went on his toes to have a look. To his surprise, it was a piece of clothing. Wei Wuxian laughed so hard that he almost toppled into the river. "Lanchan, you're so impressive! This is my first time seeing someone remove a water ghoul's clothing when they are catching water ghouls." Lao Wanji simply examined Beechen's tip to see if there was anything strange, seeming to have decided to not converse with him.
Jianchen spoke. You should shut up. The thing that swam underwater really wasn't a water ghoul. There was only a piece of clothing. Of course, Wei Wuxian also saw it clearly. He just didn't feel satisfied without teasing Lao Wenji a few times. He spoke. So, the thing that was sneaking around was just this piece of clothing? Now that's why the nets couldn't catch it and swords couldn't pierce it. Its shape was always different. However, a piece of clothing couldn't have swallowed up a whole sword. There must be something else inside the water. At the moment, the boats already floated toward the center of Biliang Lake. The color of the lake was an extremely dark shade of green. Suddenly, Lao Wenji slightly lifted his head. Go back immediately, Lan Shichen asked. Why? Lao Wenji answered. The underwater beings led the boats into the center of Biliang Lake on purpose. Just as he finished his words, everyone suddenly felt their boats sinking. Water immediately started to spread onto the boats. Wei Wuxian suddenly noticed that the color of Biliang Lake's water wasn't dark green anymore, but almost black. Surrounding the area, close to the center, a large whirlpool had formed without anybody realizing. The 10 or so boats circled around, following the currents of the whirlpool. They sunk as they spun, as if they were going to be sucked inside a gigantic black mouth. The clangs of drawing swords chorused in the air. One after another, everyone mounted their swords and flew upward. Wei Wuxian already hovered above. He looked downward only to see that the disciple who drove his sword underwater, Susha, was already knee-deep inside the water, and the board of his boat already engulfed in Biliang Lake. Although his face was full of panic, he didn't call for help, possibly frightened rigid. Without hesitation, Wei Wuxian bent down and stretched his arm out, grabbing Susha's wrist and pulling him up. Having added another person, the sword under his feet dipped abruptly, but it continued to ascend. However, not long after, a strong force suddenly came from Sushi, almost pulling Wei Wuxian off of his sword. The lower part of Sushi's body was already submerged inside the back whirlpool in the lake. The whirlpool spun faster and faster, and his body also sunk deeper and deeper. There seemed to be something hiding underwater, holding onto his legs and pulling them down. Jiangchen originally stood on his sandu and calmly ascended to about 70 meters above the surface of the lake. As he looked down, he dashed toward them with an annoyed expression. What are you doing now? The sucking force of the lake became stronger and stronger. Wei Wuxian's sword was superior in terms of agility, but inferior in terms of strength. He was almost weighed down to the point of hovering right above the surface of the lake. He steadied himself while using both hands to hold Sushi and shouted, Can somebody come here to help? If I still can't pull him up, I'm gonna let go. Suddenly, Wei Wuxian felt his collar tighten, and he was lifted into the air. He turned around to see Lao Wenji holding the back of his collar with one hand. Although Lao Wenji merely looked into another direction with an indifferent look,
He and his sword carried the weight of 3 people and fought with the mysterious force of the lake at the same time. Moreover, their position was still rising at a steady pace. Xiang was rather shocked. If I went down to pull Wei before him, using Sandu, I probably couldn't have ascended so quickly and steadily. Lao Wenji is only around my age. At this point, Wei Wuxian spoke. Lanchan, your sword is quite strong, isn't it? Thank you. But why did you pull my collar? Can't you hold on to me? I don't feel comfortable if you do this. Why don't I stretch my hand to you and can you grab it? Lao Wenji replied with a cold voice. I do not have physical contact with others. Wei Wuxian, we are already this familiar with each other. So, how are my others? Lao Wenji, we are not. Wei Wuxian pretended to be hurt. You can't do this. Xiang really couldn't hold it anymore. He scolded. You can't do this? Can't you speak a few sentences less while you are held in mid-air by your collar? The group travelled on their swords and evacuated Bilian Lake as fast as they could. When they landed, Lao Wenji let go of Wei Wuxian's back collar and calmly turned to Lan Shichen. It is a waterborne abyss. Lan Shichen shook his head. Then this is going to be difficult. As they heard the name waterborne abyss, Wei Wuxian and Xiang understood immediately. The scariest part about Bilian Lake wasn't water goals, but the water which flowed in it. Because of reasons such as terrain or currents, some rivers or lakes often encountered sinking ships and drowning people. As time went on, the area of water could develop a personality. It was like a spoiled young mistress who couldn't tolerate a shortage of the luxurious lifestyle. If no boats of goods or living humans sunk into the water as sacrifices, it would stir up trouble and obtain them on its own. The people of the Saye town area were all familiar with water, so sunken boats and drowning deaths rarely happened. It was impossible for a waterborne abyss to grow out of here. Now that one had appeared here, there was only one possibility, that it had been chased here from somewhere else. Once a waterborne abyss emerged, it meant that the whole body of water was turned into a monster. It was extremely hard to get rid of, impossible to remove unless every single drop of water was taken out. All of the people and goods which sunk were fished up, and riverbed was exposed to strong sunlight for a few years. Nevertheless, there was a method that could solve the immediate problem at the expense of others. To chase it to another river or pond and let it wreck somewhere else. Lao Wenji asked, Recently, has there been any place which suffered from waterborne abyss? Lan Shichen pointed at the sky. He was pointing at nothing else but the sun. Wei Wuxian and Xiang looked at each other, understanding perfectly. It is the Qishenmen sect. Among the cultivation world, there was a countless number of sects and clans, exceeding even the number of stars in the sky. And among these, there was a Titan which stood above the others without a doubt, the Qishenmen sect. The Wen clan used the sun as the motive of their clan, signifying that they could compete with the sun for radiance, match the sun in longevity. Its sect residence was quite large, almost comparable to a city. It was named the Nightless Sky, also called the Nightless Celestial City, because it was said that there was no nightfall in the city. It could be described as a titan for the fact that no matter in terms of the number of disciples, power, land, or magical tools, there were no other families which could compare to it. A great deal of cultivators took being a foreign disciple to the Wen sect as a supreme honor. Based on the Wen sect's style of doing things, it was highly possible that the waterborne abyss in Sai Yi town was chased here by them. Although they knew where the waterborne abyss came from, everyone grew silent. If it was done by people of the Wen sect, then there would be no result, no matter how hard they accused or criticized. First of all, the sect wouldn't admit it. And second, there wouldn't be any compensation either. One disciple complained, "Sai town will be seriously harmed with that sect having chased the waterborne abyss over. If the waterborne abyss grows larger and expands onto the river path in the town, all those people's lives would be up to the monster." This is so... If it became responsible for the problem passed to them by someone else, the Gusulan sect would definitely face countless troubles. Lan Shichen sighed. Let it down. Let us go back to the town." They boarded new boats at the crossing point and paddled toward an area of town where a lot of people gathered. After passing the arc bridge and entering the river paths, Wei Wuxian started to go at it again. Abandoning his paddle, he put one foot on the side of his boat and looked into his reflection in the water, examining if his hair was messed up. As if he didn't just catch tons of water goals and escape from the mouth of the waterborne abyss, Wei Wuxian assuredly threw a series of charming wings at both sides of the path. "Sisters, how much for half a kilogram of loquats?" His age was young and his appearance was handsome. With such high spirits, it really was a scene if frivolous peach blossoms pursuing the running stream. One woman lifted her bamboo hat, smiling with the head raised. "Young bear, you needn't pay. How about I can give you one for free?" The Wu dialect was soft, sounding refreshing and sweet. The speaker's lips moved melodiously, and the listener's ears would be enveloped in fragrance. Wei Wuxian cupped his hands together. "If it's given to me by sister, then I definitely want it." The woman put a hand into the basket and threw him a round golden locket. "You needn't be such polite. It's for how handsome you look." The boats moved at a fast speed. As the two boats met, they immediately passed each other. Wei Wuxian turned round, perfectly catching it, and grinned. "Sister looks even prettier." As he showed off and floated on the side, Lao Wenji was staring straight ahead, appearing quite virtuous. Wei Wuxian smugly tossed the loquat in his hand and suddenly pointed at him. "Sisters, do you think that he looks handsome?" Lao Wenji didn't expect Wei Wuxian to suddenly talk about him at all. Just as he was unsure of how to respond, The women on the river spoke in harmony.
Even more handsome!
Amid this, there seemed to be the laughter of a few men. Vaibhushan spoke.
Then, does anyone want to give him one? If you only give me and not him, I'm afraid he might be jealous when we go back.
Chirp-like laughter echoed through the whole river. Another woman came from in front of them, standing on her boat.
Okay, you get two. Heads up, young man, catch!
After the second one also landed in his hand, Vaibhushan shouted,
Sister, you're not only pretty, but you're nice as well. The next time I come here, I'm gonna buy a whole basket.
The woman's voice was vibrant, and she was more daring than the other. She pointed at Lawanji.
Get him to come as well. You all can come here and get them.
Vaibhushan held the loquent in front of Lawanji's eyes. Lawanji didn't move his gaze.
Move!
And so Vaibhushan moved it away.
I knew that you definitely wouldn't accept it, so I never intended to give it to you. Jiangchen, catch!
Just then, the boat which Jiangchen was on veered past. He caught the loquent with one hand, a slight smile appearing on his face, but immediately snorted.
You're being all flirty again?
Vaibhushan smirked, proud of his success.
Get lost!
Then he turned around and asked,
Lanchan, you're from Gusu, so you know how to speak in this dialect, right? Teach me. How do you swear in the Gusu dialect?
Lawanji threw a pathetic at him and got on another boat. Vaibhushan didn't expect him to really answer. He just wanted to tease him. After hearing the amusingly soft Gusu dialect and thinking that Lawanji undoubtedly also spoke the dialect when he was young. After raising his head to swallow another gulp of the rice wine, he carried the plump, jet black jar in one hand, picked up the paddle and charged over to beat up Jiangchen. On the other hand, Lawanji stood side by side to Lan Shichen. This time, even their expressions were similar. Both looked as if they were preoccupied by troubles as they thought about things such as how to deal with the waterborne abyss and what to say to the mayor of Sai town. An extremely heavy boat came from in front of them, filled with buckets of large golden loquens. Lawanji took one glance at it and continued to look straight ahead. Yet, Lan Shichen spoke to him. If you want to eat loquens, should we buy one basket? Lawanji went off with a flick of his sleeves.
I do not.
He went to stand on another boat. Vaibhushan bought a bunch of quirky gadgets in Sai town and took them back to the cloud recesses. After he arrived, everything was shared between the disciples from other sects. Because Lanchiren went to Qinghe and there were no classes for a few days, all of the boys played around in complete chaos, rushing into Vaibhushan and Jiangchen's room to sleep there. All through the nights, they ate, drank, wrestled, gambled, and weaved picture books. During one of the nights, Vaibhushan lost in a game of dice and was sent to sneak down the mountain and buy jars of Emperor's Smile. This time, everyone finally had the chance to satisfy their taste buds. However, on the second day, before daylight even appeared, someone opened the door of the room, revealing the disciples who spread out on the floor in a tangled, sleeping as if they were a group of corpses. The noise from opening the door startled a few people. As they saw the stone-faced Lawanji at the door, through their sleepy eyes, they were instantly waken up. Xiang furiously pushed Wei Wuxian, who ended up in a position with his legs at the top and head at the bottom.
Wei Xiang, Wei Xiang!
Having been shoved for a few times, Wei Wuxian spoke drowsily.
Who? Is there anyone else up for it? Jiang Chen, the fight is on. Like I'm scared of you.
Jiang Chen drank too much last night, and his head still ached as he lay on the ground with his eyes closed. He randomly grabbed something and hurled it at where Wei Wuxian's voice came from.
Shut up!
The object landed on Wei Wuxian's chest, its pages flipping open. Xiang eyed it, only to find that the item Jiang Chen used to hit Wei Wuxian was one of his treasured, out-of-print, illustrated pornography books. As he looked up and saw Lawanji's frigid gaze, he almost died on the spot. Wei Wuxian mumbled a few sentences, hugging the book to his chest, and went to sleep again. Lawanji stepped into the room. He used one hand to grip Wei Wuxian's back collar, lift him up, and dragged him in the direction of the door. After a few puzzled moments as he was carried by Lawanji, he was finally half awake. He turned round.
Lanchan, what are you doing?
Lawanji didn't say any words, continuing to drag him forward. Wei Wuxian woke up a bit more, along with the lying corpses on the ground who gained consciousness one after another. Seeing that Wei Wuxian was caught by Lawanji again, he hurried outside and asked,
What's happening? What are you doing?
Lawanji turned his head, speaking one word at a time.
To receive his punishment.
Jiang Chen had a slow reaction from his sleep and drinking too much, so he just remembered the mess of the floor in the room. Recalling that they broke a countless number of set rules of the cloud recesses last night, his face immediately froze. Lawanji dragged Wei Wuxian to the front of the Lansect's ancestral hall. There were already a few older disciples of the Lansect waiting here, 8 in total. Of them, 4 carried disciplined rulers made of sandalwood, which were extremely long in length, having numerous square-shaped characters carved onto them. It was a solemn-looking scene indeed. As Lawanji dragged the person over, 2 of them immediately came up, firmly holding Wei Wuxian in place. Wei Wuxian half knelt on the ground, being allowed no room for struggle.
Lanchan, are you going to punish me?
Lawanji stared at him coldly, maintaining his silence. Wei Wuxian spoke.
I won't accept this.
At this point, the boys who had woken up also rushed over, but they were blocked outside the ancestral hall, not allowed to go in. They scratched their heads, scared speechless from seeing the disciplined ruler. Then, however, Lawanji lifted the bottom of his white clothes and knelt down beside Wei Wuxian. Seeing this, Wei Wuxian turned pale with fear. He tried to get up, but Lawanji commanded, "Strike!" Wei Wuxian gaped with astonishment. He hurriedly spoke.
Wait, I accept this. Lanchan, I was wrong. Ah!
The palms and legs of both of them received about 100 strikes of the disciplined ruler. Lawanji didn't need anyone to hold him down. His back was upright and his kneeling position stayed proper for the whole duration. On the other hand, Wei Wuxian wailed and howled without holding back at all, making the disciples watching the scene cringe from imagining the pain. After the beating finished, Lawanji silently stood up and walked outside after saluting toward the disciples in the ancestral hall, showing no evidence that he had been injured. Wei Wuxian was the exact opposite. After he was carried onto Jiang Chen's back, he groaned for the whole way. The youths all surrounded them, asking, "Wei Xiang, what in the world happened?" "It's understandable for Lan Chan to punish you, but why did he himself get the punishment?" Wei Wuxian sighed, leaning on Jiang Chen's back. "What a miscalculation. It's a long story." Jiang Chen spoke. "Cut the crap. What on earth did you do?" Wei Wuxian answered. "I didn't do anything. Last night, didn't I lose the dice game and go down to buy some Emperor's Smile?" Jiang Chen. "Don't tell me you met him again." Wei Wuxian. "That's actually it. Who knew what was wrong with my luck? When I carried the jars of Emperor's Smile and came up here, he stood right in front of me again. I'm doubting that maybe he really watches me every single day." Jiang Chen. "Not everyone has as much time on their hands. What happened next?" Wei Wuxian. "And then I said hello to him again. I said, 'Lan Chan, what a coincidence. It's you again.' Of course he ignored me again. His hand came at me without any words. I said, 'Hey, what's the use of doing this?' He said that if a guest disciple violates the curfew so many times, they need to go to the Lan sect's ancestral hall to receive their punishment. And I said, 'There's only the two of us here. If you don't say it, and I don't say it, then nobody would know whether or not I violate the curfew. Right? I promise that there's no next time. We are already this familiar with each other, so can't you just do me a small favor?' Everyone looked as if they couldn't bear to listen to this any longer. Wei Wuxian continued. In the end, he said that we weren't familiar with a long face, grabbed his sword and charged over. He paid no heed to our friendship or whatsoever, so I could only put down the Emperor's Smile and start passing a few moves. His attacks were fast and chased after me so close that I couldn't even throw him off. Eventually, I really was annoyed from him chasing me. I asked, 'Are you really not gonna let go? Huh?' He still said, 'Take your punishment.' The boys were filled with the thrill of the story, and Wei Wuxian was enraptured as he spoke. He forgot the fact that he was still on Jiang Chen's back and gave Jiang Chen's shoulder a hard smack. I said, 'Fine.' Then I stopped dodging, threw myself over, clung to him, and plummeted outside of the wall of the cloud recesses. Wei Wuxian. And so, the two of us fell outside the area of the cloud recesses together. It was such a bad fall, and I saw stars before my eyes. Xiang was dumbstruck. "He didn't break free?" Wei Wuxian replied, "Oh, he did try. But with me locking him with my arms and legs, he couldn't break free even though he wanted to, unable to even get up from my body. He was as hard as wood." I said, "How about this, Lanchan? Now you are also outside the cloud recesses. We both broke the curfew, and you can't be harsh toward others and loose towards yourself. If you punish me, you'd have to punish yourself as well. Equal treatment. How does that sound?" Wei Wuxian. After he got up, he looked like he really wasn't in a good mood. I sat on the side and told him not to worry, that I won't tell anyone else, and that the only ones who knew about this was the sky, the earth, and us too. And then he walked off without saying anything. Who knew that he'd do something like this in the morning? "Jiangchen, walk slower. You're almost shaking me off." Jiangchen wanted not to only shake him off, but even more so to make a few man-shaped dents on the ground by slamming his head down. "Is simply carrying you not up to your standards?" Wei Wuxian. "I never asked you to carry me in the beginning." Jiangchen was enraged. "If I don't carry you, you'd probably stay in the ancestral hall and roll on the ground all day long. I don't have that thick of a face to lose. Lawanji even had 50 more strikes than you, and he even walked by himself. Yet you have the nerve to pretend that you're crippled. I don't want to carry you anymore. Get off now." Wei Wuxian. "No, I'm wounded." The group joked around on the narrow path made of white stones. They walked right into a person in white robes holding a book as he passed by. Lan Shichen stopped with wonder and smiled. "What is going on here?" Jiangchen felt extremely awkward, not knowing how to reply. Xiang answered before him. "Shichanga, Wei Xiang was punished with more than 100 strikes of the ruler. Is there any medicine?" The person responsible for punishment in the cloud recesses was Lawanji. With Wei Wuxian's pained cries amid the group which surrounded him, it appeared as if his condition was extremely severe. Lan Shichen immediately came up to them. "Was this done by Wanji? Is young Master Wei still able to walk? What in the world happened?" Of course, Jiangchen didn't dare to say that Wei Wuxian was at fault. Thinking back, it was them who urged Wei Wuxian to buy liquor. Each and every one of them should have been punished. He could only speak in a vague way. It's fine. It's not that serious. He can walk." "Wei Wuxian, why are you still up there?" Wei Wuxian spoke. "I can't walk." He raised his red palms, which were swollen a few sizes larger, and complained to Lan Shichen. "Sir Wuxian, your younger brother is so cruel." Lan Shichen examined his palms. "Yes, the punishment is quite severe indeed. It is likely that the swelling will not subside until after 3 or 4 days." Jiangchen really did know that the beating was so severe. He exclaimed, "What? Not after 3 or 4 days?" His legs and his back were also hit by the disciplined rulers. "How can Lawanji do this?" He spoke the last sentence with resentment in spite of himself, and only realized it after Wei Wuxian secretly smacked him. However, Lan Shichen didn't mind it at all. He smiled.
Nevertheless, it is not severe enough to require medication. Young Master Wei, let me tell you a way for your injuries to be healed in just a few hours. It was night time at the cold spring of the cloud recesses. Lao Wanji's eyes were closed as he relaxed in ice-cold water. Suddenly, a voice rang beside his ears. Lanchan! Lao Wanji's eyes sprang open. Sure enough, Wei Wuxian was lying on his stomach, above the blue stones beside the cold spring, tilting his head and smiling at him. Lao Wanji blurted out, "How did you come in?" Wei Wuxian slowly crawled up and spoke as he took off his sash belt. "Sergeant told me to come in." Lao Wanji, "What are you doing?" Wei Wuxian kicked off his boots while leaving piles of clothing all over the ground. "I already stripped, so what do you think I am here for? I heard that your sect's cold spring can cure injuries aside from helping with one's cultivation. So your brother told me to come here and bathe with you. Except it's really not nice of you to come here to heal alone." It's really cold. He went into the water, rolling about due to the freezing water of the spring. Lao Wanji quickly distanced himself a few meters away from Wei Wuxian. "I came here for cultivation purposes, not to heal. Do not leap around." Wei Wuxian spoke. "But it's so cold. This time he didn't intend to emphasize or cause trouble. It was true that most people couldn't become used to Gusulan sect's cold spring in a short amount of time, feeling as if their bodies and blood would freeze if they stayed still for just a few moments. So he could only jump around, intending to warm his body from the movement. Lao Wanji was originally meditating in peace, but with Wei Wuxian jumping about, a few splashes of water was thrown on his face. A few droplets trickled down his long lashes and ink-black hair. It was beyond his endurance. "Do not move." As he spoke, he extended an arm and put his hand on Wei Wuxian's shoulder. Wei Wuxian instantly felt a surge of warmth coming from where their bodies connected. Feeling better, he couldn't help but to shift closer over there. Lao Wanji was wary of this. "What?" Wei Wuxian replied in an innocent tone. "Nothing. It seems like your side is warmer." Lao Wanji firmly kept his arm between the two of them, maintaining the distance. He sternly declared, "It is not." Wei Wuxian wanted to get closer to Lao Wanji so that it was more convenient for him to flutter the other. Even though he couldn't go over and was given the cold shoulder, he wasn't angered at all. He glanced at Lao Wanji's palms and shoulder. The bruises were still there, meaning that Lao Wanji really wasn't here to heal. Wei Wuxian spoke sincerely. "Lanchan, I admire you so much. You really did punish yourself as well, without treating yourself any better. I don't have anything else to say." Lao Wanji shut his eyes again, without any words. Wei Wuxian spoke again. "Really, I've never seen someone as prim and proper as you. It'd be impossible for me to do something like this. You're so cool." Lao Wanji still paid him no attention. After Wei Wuxian stopped feeling cold, he started to swim around the cold spring. He swam for a while, but still went near Lao Wanji. Lanchan, didn't you notice what I was doing when I talked to you?
Lawanji,
I do not know.
Wei Wuxian,
You don't even know about this? I was complimenting you, trying to become more casual with you.
Lawanji glanced at him.
What do you want to do?
Wei Wuxian,
Lanchan, why don't we become friends? We are already so familiar.
Lawanji,
We are not.
Wei Wuxian slapped the surface of the water.
Now you're being boring again. Really, there are lots of benefits if you become friends with me.
Lawanji,
For example,
Wei Wuxian swam near the edge of the spring and leaned back with his arms on the blue rocks.
I'm always really loyal towards my friends. For example, I definitely let you be the first person to look at my new phone that I get hold of. Hey, come back. It's fine if you don't look at them. Have you been to Yumeng? Yumeng is really fun. Yumeng's food is also good. I don't know if it's Gusu's or the cloud race's problem, but the food in your sects are so bad. If you come to Lotus Pier, you can eat lots of delicious food. I can take you to pick lotus seed pods and water chestnuts. Lanchan, do you want to come?
Lawanji,
No.
Wei Wuxian,
Don't answer everything with negative words. You sound so uncaring. Girls won't like it. Let me tell you, the girls in Yumeng look very pretty, different from the sort of pretty in Gusu.
He winked his left eye at Lan in proud way.
You sure you don't want to come?
Lawanji hesitated, but still replied,
No.
Wei Wuxian,
Rejecting me without giving me any respect? Aren't you scared that I'd conveniently take away your clothes when I leave?
Lawanji.
Get lost.
After the lunchroom left Qinghe and returned to Gusu, he didn't make Wei Wuxian to go the library pavilion to copy the land sect rules again, but simply gave him a harsh scolding in front of everyone. Without the parts where he quoted ancient scriptures, it all boiled down to how he had never seen someone so unruly and shameless before, so please get lost as soon as and as far as possible. Please don't go near the other pupils and specially refrain from tainting his favorite one, Lawanji. As he scolded, Wei Wuxian only grinned while listening, feeling no humiliation or anger at all. Immediately after lunchroom left, Wei Wuxian sat down and spoke to Jiangchen.
Don't you think that it's a bit too late? Telling me to get lost now? He only told me to get lost after I finished tainting his person. It's too late.
The waterborne abyss in Sayi town created a great deal of trouble for the Gusulan sect. It was impossible to completely destroy it, and the Lan sect couldn't chase it to somewhere else like the Wen sect did. The sect leader of the Gusu sect was in secluded meditation most of the time, so Lanchiren used all of his energy on this matter. With the lessons becoming shorter and shorter, Wei Wuxian's time spent with his friends in the mountains became longer and longer. Today Wei Wuxian intended on going outside with a group of 7 or 8 people again. As they passed the Lan sect's library pavilion, he looked through the drape of magnolia branches and he could just about see Lawanji sitting alone by the window. Ni Huaisang spoke in a puzzled tone.
Is he looking at us? That's strange. We didn't make too much noise. So why does he still look at us like that?
Wei Wuxian,
He's probably thinking of how to find faults with us.
Jiangchen
interrupted. Wrong. Not us, but me. I think the only person he is watching is you. Wei Wuxian. Huh? Just let him wait. I'll deal with him after I get back. Jiang Chen. Don't you dislike how he's boring and how he's not fun? Then you should stop teasing him. This is like pulling whiskers from tiger's mouth. Stop looking for your own death. Wei Wuxian replied, No, it's exceptionally fun. Precisely because how a living person can be so not fun. They only returned to the cloud recesses when the time almost reached noon. Lao Wanji sat before the desk, organizing this stack of paper which he wrote on, as he heard a creaking noise coming from the window. He looked up to see someone hop inside. Wei Wuxian came up by climbing the magnolia tree outside of the library pavilion. His face was beaming. Lan-chan, I'm back. Did you miss me? Huh? Without me copying tasks for these past few days? Lao Wanji seemed like an old monk in a state of meditation, seeing everything as nothing. He even continued to organize the pile of books with a numb expression. Wei Wuxian deliberately misinterpreted his silence. I know. Even if you don't say that you definitely missed me. Or else early on, why did you look at me through the window? Lao Wanji immediately shot him a glance, his eyes full of silent accusations. Wei Wuxian sat atop the window sill. Look at you, rising to the bait after just a few sentences. You're so easy to catch. This way you won't be able to maintain your composure. Lao Wanji, you leave. Wei Wuxian, if I don't leave, will you throw me down? Looking at Lao Wanji's face, Wei Wuxian suspected that if he spoke one more sentence, Lao Wanji would really abandon the small amount of self-restraint he had left and nail him onto the window at once. Wei Wuxian quickly added, Don't be so scary. I'm here to apologize by giving you a present. Lao Wanji refused at once, without thinking twice about it. No. Wei Wuxian, are you sure? Seeing that, a guarded look leaked from Lao Wanji's eyes, he fished out 2 rabbits from his arms, as if he was performing a magic trick. As he held onto them by their ears, it seems like he was holding 2 round chubby snowballs. The snowballs even kicked their legs around. He lifted them in front of Lao Wanji's eyes. It's actually quite strange here. There aren't any peasants, but there are lots of wild rabbits. They aren't even scared of people. What do you think? Are they fat? Do you want them? Lao Wanji stared at him indifferently. Wei Wuxian, fine. If you don't want them, I'm going to give them to other people. We aren't having much flavors in our mouths anyways. After he heard the last sentence, Lao Wanji spoke. Stop! Wei Wuxian extended his arms. I'm not going anywhere. Lao Wanji, who are you giving them to? Wei Wuxian answered. I'm gonna give them to whoever good at roasting rabbit meat. Lao Wanji, killing is forbidden in the cloud recesses. It is the 3rd rule on the wall of rules. Wei Wuxian, fine. Then I'll go down the mountain, kill it outside, and then bring it back to roast it. You don't want it anyways, so why do you care so much about it? Lao Wanji spoke one word at a time. Give it to me.
Wei Wuxian grinned on the windowsill. "Now you want it? Look at you, they're always like this." Both of these rabbits were chubby and round, appearing to two balls made of fluffy snowflakes. One had bleary eyes and lay on his stomach, remaining motionless even after a long while. As it chewed on the lettuce, its pink mouth moved in a leisurely manner. The other one seemed as if it was actually a cricket, constantly hopping up and down. It played around with its companion, wriggling and leaping non-stop. Wei Wuxian tossed over a few pieces of lettuce which he took out of nowhere. He suddenly called, "Lanchan, Lanchan!" The energetic rabbit had stepped on Lawanji's ink stone and left a line of black footsteps on the desk. Lawanji was unsure of what to do, holding a piece of paper and considering different ways to wipe it off. He didn't want to pay Wei Wuxian any attention, but hearing the exaggerated tone, he thought that there might be an issue. "What?" Wei Wuxian. "Look at how one is on top of the other." "Are they?" Lawanji. "Both of these are male." Wei Wuxian. "Male? How weird." He lifted them by the ears, examined them, and confirmed. "They really are male." "Well, then I didn't even finish my sentence." "Why are you so stern? What were you thinking of?" "Now that I think about it, I was the one who caught them. I didn't even notice whether they are male or female, but you even look at their..." Lawanji finally threw him down the library pavilion. Wei Wuxian laughed while in midair. "Ha ha ha ha!" With a bang, Lawanji slammed the window closed and stumbled back to the desk. As he swept a look at the messy piles of rice paper and ink paw prints on the ground, as well as the two white rabbits which rolled around while dragging pieces of lettuce leaves, he closed his eyes and covered his ears. The clusters of quivering magnolia branches were shut outside the windows. Yet, no matter how hard he resisted, he couldn't shut out Wei Wuxian's vibrant, unrestrained laughter. On the second day, Lawanji finally stopped having classes with them. Wei Wuxian's seat changed 3 times. He originally sat beside Xiang, but Xiang paid attention to the lessons and sat in the front row in order to look good for the Yumenqian sect. This position was too conspicuous, allowing Wei Wuxian no room to fool around, so he abandoned Xiang and sat behind Lawanji. When Lanchiren was teaching in the front, Lawanji sat as straight as a wall made of iron. Behind him, Wei Wuxian would either sleep like a log or draw scribbles as he pleased. Aside from Lawanji occasionally blocking the crumbled pieces of paper he threw toward other people, it was an excellent place to be at. However, soon afterward, Lanchiren became aware of this trick, so he switched their seats. Ever since then, whenever Wei Wuxian's sitting posture became a bit tilted, he could feel a cold, sharp gaze staring at his back. Lanchiren would also throw him a glowering look. It was extremely uncomfortable for him to be monitored by the old one and the young one all the time. Moreover, after the pornography case and the rabbit case, Lanchiren was certain that Wei Wuxian was a basin full of jet black dye and feared that his favorite pupil would be stained, which was why he hastened to tell Lawanji to stop going to lessons. And so, Wei Wuxian sat back on his old spot, and half a month of peace followed. Unfortunately, the good things never lasted long for someone like Wei Wuxian. In the cloud recesses there was a long wall. Every 7 steps there would be a hollowed-out window with intricate designs. All of the designs were different, playing an instrument amid tall mountains, flying in the air on a sword, fighting monsters and beasts, and so on. Lan Qiren explained that the designs of every hollowed-out window on this wall was about the life of each ancestor of the Gusulan clan. The oldest and most famous 4 windows told the life of the founder of the Lan sect, Lan An. This founder was born in a temple. He grew up listening to the chanting of sutras and thus became a famous monk at a very young age. At the age of 20, he used the Lan from Jielan as his last name and resumed the worldly life, becoming a musician. During his path of cultivation, he met the fated person he searched for in Gusu, became cultivation partners with her, and founded the Lan sect. After his partner passed away, he returned to the temple and ended his life there. The 4 windows were Jielan, Shiyue, Daolu, and Guiji. During these past few days, the lessons seldomly involved a topic as interesting as this. Although Lan Qiren introduced it with boring timelines, Wei Wuxian absorbed the knowledge for once. After class, he laughed. So, the founder of the Lan sect was a monk. No wonder. He ventured into the mortal world to meet one person, and as she went, he went as well, leaving nothing behind on this earth. But why would a person like him produce such unromantic descendants? Since nobody expected the Lan sect, which was famous for being orthodox, to have such a founder, they started to chat among themselves. As they chatted, the center of the conversation tipped towards the direction of cultivation partners, and they started to discuss the cultivation partners of their dreams, evaluating the well-known girls in the different sects. At this point, someone asked, Xiang, who do you think is the best girl? As Wei Wuxian and Xiang heard this, they both looked toward a boy in the front rows of the classroom. The boy had proud, handsome features with a vermilion mark on his forehead. His collar, cuffs, and sash belt all had the white peony named Sparks Amist Snow Siwan. This was the young master sent to study in Gusu by the Lanlianjin sect, Jin Zixuan. Another person spoke. It's best for you to not ask Zixuan Xiang about this. He's already got a fiancé, so his answer would definitely be his fiancé. Hearing the word fiancé, Jin Zixuan's lips seemed to twitch, showing a slight expression of displeasure. The disciple who asked was quite oblivious, continuing with a cheerful face. Really? Which sect is she from? She must be extremely talented. Jian Zixuan raised a brow. Forget it. Wei Wuxian suddenly spoke. What do you mean by forget it? Everyone in the room looked at him with surprise. Usually, Wei Wuxian was always grinning. He had never really been angered, even when he was scolded or punished. Yet, at the moment, there was an obvious streak of hostility on his face. Jiang Chen didn't criticize Wei Wuxian either for making trouble out of nothing, as he usually did. He simply sat beside him with a dark face. Jin Sishuan spoke in arrogant tone. Is the phrase "forget it" too difficult to understand? Wei Wuxian smiled sardonically. The phrase isn't hard to understand. Instead, it's hard to understand how on earth you are unsatisfied with my Shijie. Everyone whispered to one another. They only understood after the exchange of words that they had accidentally stirred up a hornet's nest. Jin Sishuan's fiancée just happened to be Jiayan Li of the Yumenqian sect. Jiayan Li was the oldest child of Jiang Fengmian and Jiang Chen's older sister. Her personality was mild with nothing too notable. Her voice was smooth with nothing too memorable. Her appearance was only above average, and her talents weren't astonishing either. Amid the girls from the other prominent clans, it was only natural that he seemed a bit average. On the other hand, her fiancé, Jin Sishuan, was the exact opposite. He was the only official son of Jin Guanshan with outstanding looks and exceptional talents. According to common sense, with Jiayan Li's conditions, it was true that they weren't well matched with each other. She wasn't even qualified enough to compete with the other girls. The only reason why Jiayan Li was able to enter an engagement with Jin Sishuan was because her mother was from the Meishanyu sect, and the Meishanyu sect was quite friendly with the sect of which Jin Sishuan's mother was from. The two madams grew up together and they had a close relationship. The ways of Jin sect were proud, and Jin Sishuan inherited every single drop of this. With his high standards, he had been unsatisfied with this engagement since a long time ago. He was not only unsatisfied with the candidate, but even more so with her mother, taking the liberty to decide for him, making him grow more and more rebellious at heart. Today, he took the opportunity to break out. Jin Sishuan asked in reply, "Why don't you ask me how on earth can I be satisfied with her?" Jiang Chen instantly stood up. Pushing him to the side, Wei Wuxian walked in front of him and sneered. "You sure think that you are pretty satisfying, don't you? Where did you get the guts to be all choosy here?" Because of this engagement, Jin Sishuan had no positive impressions of the Yumenqian sect and had frowned upon Wei Wuxian's behavior since some time ago. On top of that, he boasted himself to be unrivaled among the juniors without ever having been looked down upon like this. All of the blood in his body rose to his head, and he blurted, "If she is unsatisfied, then tell her to get rid of this engagement. In conclusion, I don't care about your Shijie. If you care for her, ask her father about it. Doesn't he treat you better than treating his own child or something?" Hearing the last sentence, Jiang Chen's eyes stiffened. With uncontrollable anger, Wei Wuxian rushed over and sent out a punch. Although Jin Sishuan was prepared, he didn't expect Wei Wuxian to attack so quickly before he even finished his sentence. Having suffered one punch, half of his face numbed. He immediately struck back without speaking a word. This fight startled both of the two prominent sects. On the same day, Jiang Fengmian and Jin Guanshan hastened to Gusu from Yunmen and Lanliang. After the two sect leaders went to see the two who were punished to kneel and received a severe scolding from Lanchiren, they wiped some sweat from their foreheads and started to engage in small talk. Jiang Fengmian soon brought up the idea of cancelling the engagement. He told Jin Guanshan, "Ali's mother was the one who insisted on having this engagement in the first place, and I didn't agree. Look at it now. As neither of them are keen, it's best if we don't force it." Jin Guanshan was shocked. He felt a bit hesitant, as it was never a good thing to end an engagement with another prominent sect, no matter how one looked at it. He responded, "Why do the children know? They can play around however they want to. Fan Min Xiang. You and I don't need to pay them any attention." Jiang Fengmian. "Jin Xiang, although we can set the engagement for them, we can't carry out the marriage in place of them. After all, they are the ones who will be spending the rest of their lives together." This engagement had never been the intention of Jin Guanshan. If he wanted to strengthen his sect's power by a marriage with another sect, the Yumenjian sect was neither the only choice nor the best choice. It was only that he had never dared to go against Madame Jin. Anyhow, this was initially proposed by the Jian sect. Since the Jin sect was the husband's side, they didn't have as many concerns as the wife's side. So, what was the point of worrying over it? Moreover, he knew that Jin Sixuan had always been resentful toward Jian Li's status as his fiancé. After some consideration, Jin Guanshan conjured up the courage and agreed to this matter. At this time, Wei Wuxian still didn't know what this fight broke up, as he knelt on the stone path that Lanchiren assigned to him. From a distance, Jian Chen approached with a sneer on his face. "Look at how well behaved you are, kneeling so properly." Wei Wuxian gloating. "Of course, I kneel all the time. But Jin Sixuan is a spoiled brat, so he's definitely never knelt before. If I don't make him kneel to the point that he cries for his parents, my last name won't be Wei anymore." Jian Chen lowered his head, pausing for a few moments, and spoke in a soft voice. "Father came." Wei Wuxian. "Shi Jie didn't come, did she?" Jian Chen. "Why would she come? To say how you lost face for her? If she did come, would she not come to your side and bring you medicine?" Wei Wuxian sighed. "It'd be nice if Shi Jie come. It's fortunate that you didn't hit him." Jian Chen. "I was going to. If you didn't push me, the other side of Jin Xuan's face would also be ruined." Wei Wuxian. "Nah, he looks ugly right now, with an asymmetrical face. I heard that he values his face a lot, like a peacock. I wonder what he'd think after he looked into a mirror. Ha ha ha." After rolling on the ground with laughter, Wei Wuxian spoke again. "Actually, I should have let you hit him. And I should have watched on the side. This way, maybe Uncle Xiang wouldn't have come. But there was no choice, I couldn't help it." Jian Chen hummed lightly. "You wish." Although it was only Wei Wuxian's casual words, he held mixed feelings because he knew that this wasn't a lie. Jiang Fengmian had never hurried to another sect in one day for anything related to him, no matter if the issue was good or bad, large or small. Never. As Wei Wuxian saw his melancholy face, he thought that he was still annoyed at Jin Sishuan's words. You should go. You don't need to stay with me. If Lao Wanqi comes again, you'd be caught by him. If you have time, go visit Jin Sishuan and look at how idiotic he looks kneeling down. Jianchen was somewhat surprised. Lao Wanqi? Why did he come? He still dare to come see you? Wei Wuxian replied, Yeah, I also thought that he should be praised for having the courage to come see me. He was probably told by his uncle to come back and check if I was kneeling properly. Jianchen instinctively felt a foreboding sensation. Were you kneeling properly? Wei Wuxian. I was kneeling properly. After he was some distance away, I found a stick and started to dig in the dirt. The pile beside your foot. There's an ant hole there, and I went through tons of trouble to find. When he turned his head, he saw what my shoulders were shaking. And he definitely thought that I was crying. He even came back to ask me. You really should have seen his expression as he saw the ant hole. Jianchen spoke. You should get lost and go back to Yunmeng as soon as possible. I don't think that he wants to see you ever again. And so, on that night, Wei Wuxian packed up his things and returned to Yunmeng with Jiang Fengmian.